first presenter is Reverend Tina Marie Reeves. She's from the United Methodist Church, and she was appointed by Bishop Robert Hashibata, and she's been with us from day one in terms of the efforts that we're putting forward. Reverend Reeves.
Good morning. Actually, it's good afternoon now, isn't it? By about 15 minutes. Well, you may be wondering how, as the faithful, that you are going to do anything to meaningfully address the opioid epidemic. But surprisingly, your faith communities are uniquely poised to help stem the tide of opioid abuse and overdose deaths. You see, your faith community has crucial information about the people who are at risk for addiction to opioids, and that's because you have the prayer list. You know who has asked for prayers because they've broken an arm, or they've just had surgery, or who is asking for prayers because they have a loved one that they are caring for who is chronically ill. And that list of people, the folks on your prayer list, those are the folks who are at greatest risk for opioid overdose and addiction. And you are far more trusted by many of those folks than other professionals that they might encounter who might try to intervene. Hold on just a second, let me grab this, and let's see if this works. Yes! The best way to stop opioid addiction is to prevent it from starting, so let's talk about some common risk factors. And praise Jesus, that was interesting. Just advanced really quick. I do want to point out that your common risk factors are also on this piece of paper that you haven't. If you haven't gotten it, please make sure you pick one up before you leave, because there are so many good pieces of information on it. Now, when it comes to common risk factors, the first and most powerful risk factor for opiate addiction is receiving a valid prescription for opiates from a doctor, and that can be for pain relief after surgery or after an injury or due to chronic illness and pain. Current estimates state that between 26 and 44% of people who are currently addicted to opiates became addicted while using their prescription medication. That is 1/4 to almost 1/2 of the folks who are struggling with addiction who became addicts simply by following doctor's orders, at least when it started. Now, a second powerful risk factor is having a prescription opiate present in the home. And this refers to the risk known as diversion, when someone, often a family member or a friend of the family, browses through your medicine cabinet looking for medications that might be fun to use recreationally. But this means that both the person who is prescribed their medication, their entire family, all of their friends, and anyone else who visits their house is at risk for addiction and overdose as soon as the prescription is filled and present in their home. Now, it is important that you realize that the risk factors for addiction from diverted opioids are really great, because they're probably not being used for pain. They're being used recreationally. And I would add that most people who are recreationally using prescription opiates are not taking them orally as directed. They are crushing them, and then they are injecting them. They are injecting or smoking or snorting them, which greatly increases the likelihood of overdose. Believe it or not, an inhaled drug, a drug in smoke form, is far more powerful than any other form of that drug because of the immediacy of how it is absorbed. Now, we need to look at the red flags that someone in your faith community might be dealing with addiction. Addiction is wily and silent, and it sneaks up on folks long before they realize what's happening. It is a long time before the addict realizes just how much trouble they're in, and probably 2 to 3 times longer than that before their family and friends realize just how much trouble things have gotten into. Addiction is stealthy, but it does have a couple of telltale signs that come early in the addiction process. Oops. There we go. The first telltale signs of opiate addiction include deviation from directions for that medication's usage, increased usage, and increased tolerance for the medication. This can be summed up as needing increasingly strong medication and amounts of medication to manage pain without any advance in the disease that is causing the pain. And that last part is very crucial, because chronic and terminal illnesses, as they advance, will actually require higher doses of medication. That is natural and normal. Unfortunate, but natural and normal. Other red flags of addiction include continuing use of opiates despite negative life consequences, such as a lost job, or failing or strained relationships, increasing irritability and escalating levels of confrontational behavior, increasing isolation from family and former friends, increased financial difficulties that may require rescue by your faith community, and lying about whereabouts and circumstances for their behaviors. Okay, just making sure it actually advances. The red flags of addiction are different with teenagers, who might begin to isolate from their original social circle and gather a whole new and far more undesirable set of friends. Their grades will likely slip. They'll have a hot temper and be belligerent more than you would expect the average teen to do so. You will notice a decrease in extracurricular activities if they had previously been active in those activities. It is likely they will sneak out at night, and they may begin to steal money and other saleable objects from their parents and their siblings. The red flags of addiction in seniors, excuse me. Oh, it did not advance this time. Oh. All right, let's try this. Oh, it went. Thank you for letting me know. The red flags of addiction in seniors are a little different. They include increasing secretiveness, increased isolation from their friends, their family, and their faith community, especially if they were formerly quite involved. Decreased interest in formerly pleasurable activities, increased irritability and anger that was not a part of their personality previously, decreased appetite, and other symptoms of depression, such as hopelessness and a sense of loss, and there's just nothing good in the future. So what do you do about all this? Well, first, you've got your prayer list, which indicates to you who is encountering some of these risk factors. And it's time to take that list and then get bold. The intervention I'm going to suggest is going to involve a face-to-face visit, because it will be easier to say and do what you need to say and do if you are face-to-face. Now you might be thinking right now, yeah, that is not going to happen. There's no way that I'm going to do this. And let's be honest, a conversation like this is not going to be easy. You will be uncomfortable. You will be fearful that your faith community member is going to push you away or become angry. And how exactly do you open this conversation? Well, I have a suggestion that might help. I have a friend who works in a Phoenix hospital training chaplains, and she has this amazing method of starting really uncomfortable conversations. She'll look at the person and smile, and then she'll say, I need to say something that might be difficult to hear. Is that okay? I need to say something that may be difficult to hear. Is that okay? Saying something that blunt and direct prepares the person, and it gives them a chance to say no, to admit that they're not really ready to hear anything uncomfortable. And you know, if they're not really ready to hear difficult words, then don't share difficult words with them. If they don't want to hear it, then they're not ready to do anything about it. It would be better to wait or to talk to a family member or close friend. And that's all it takes. I need to say something to you that might be difficult to hear. Is that okay? One sentence, and it opens the door to everything that comes afterwards. So what's your biggest challenge in this conversation once you get it started? Well, getting them to believe that they are actually at risk for anything. If they are at risk for addiction, they're going to poo-poo the idea that it could happen to them. If they are at risk of someone diverting their medication, then they are going to think that their family and kids and friends are all way better than that, and they would never steal medications. And if they're already addicted, they're going to be full of excuses why they are not genuinely addicted, and why they truly need their medication in larger amounts and way more often. Your best method is going to be information and honest but gentle confrontation. When it comes to the risk for addiction and diversion, you have to remind folks that you speak to that nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, wow, today I'm going to wash the dishes and then I'm going to become an addict. Nobody does that. They also do not wake up and say, today I'm going to wash the dishes and then I'm going to leave my opiate medication out on the counter so that the teenage girl down the street that my son likes so much, who's coming over later today, can steal a pill and overdose later this week. No one says that. Nobody plans this stuff. It just happens when you're not looking, because life, my friends, is particularly lifey. So when it's time for this conversation, you're going to need to bring several things with you. One of them is information that you received at this presentation, because you're not going to be able to remember all this and spout it off the top of your head. Hey, I've got notes, you know. You're going to want to bring information about small home electronic safes, like the types you find in hotel rooms. You can get those for your house. You can get them at Walmart or on Amazon or at Harbor Freight or Home Depot, and they're not really that terribly expensive. And why would you want one of those? Well, because the best way to prevent diversion of opiate medications and other medications that are attractive for misuse and recreational use is to keep them locked in a safe that only the user of those medications can open. As a side note, those safes are really useful for locking up knives and dangerous over-the-counter medications like Tylenol in homes where someone has become suicidal due to severe depression. The other thing you're going to want to have with you is a dose of Narcan, the one that you received today, or another one from Sonoran Prevention Works, or a source like CVS or Walgreens. You need to be ready to discuss what is known as iatrogenic addiction. Iatrogenic addiction, otherwise known as addiction to a prescription that was received for a legitimate medical purpose. Your faith community member does not want to become an addict, but they sure can't get there by accident. People become addicted because they use their medications and then overuse their medications in an attempt just to continue functioning on a daily basis. You know, they just want to go to work, pay their bills, take care of their family. So don't tell them not to take their meds. Tell them to be wise. Tell them to talk to their doctor about alternative methods of pain relief and when it will be time to switch from the opiate medication they were prescribed to those alternative methods. Alternative pain relief usually involves a mix of methods, including non-narcotic pain relievers like Tylenol or ibuprofen and naproxen, lidocaine patches, medication, massage, Reiki, yoga, acupuncture, Tai Chi, self-hypnosis, and sometimes even medical cannabis. It is really important to remember that God created all of those things, including the opium puppies that we get, our hydrocodone and our morphine from, and the cannabis plant. And God created all of those things for our benefit, not for our harm. So when the opiate medication that we use for our pain becomes more harmful than helpful, turning to all the other things that God created for our good is a very wise thing to do. And the more safe methods we have for relieving our pain, the better we manage our pain, the better we thrive, and the less likely we are to become addicted. Now, when it comes to diversion, you will need to remind your faith community member that all human beings have a side that does things we are not proud of. We need salvation for a reason. Even close friends and family members may be tempted to divert medications, not because they are bad people, but because they are human, and they want to escape the pain they are in, whether that pain is emotional or physical. Now, some of you may fear that you will offend people when you talk to them about addiction. They might feel accused or singled out. They might think you have a low opinion of them or their family. Be ready to assure them that you hold them in very high esteem, or you would not even bother to try and have such a difficult conversation with them. Be bold, really bold. Don't be afraid to make people angry with you for speaking up. Or 20 years ago, when I was an intern in ministry, somebody told me that in order to do good ministry, I had to be willing to make people angry. Of course, they didn't say it quite that nicely. What they said is, if you aren't pissing people off, you're not doing good ministry. I know that all of you want to do good ministry in the name of the Lord. Speaking out like this is hard, and you will not always be well received. But we must be bold for the sake of our God and for the love of our faith communities and our neighbors. So be bold and remember this sentence. I need to say something to you that might be difficult for you to hear. Is that okay? Last, I would like to introduce you to some of the resources for information on and treatment of addiction. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, otherwise known as SAMHSA, is a part of our federal government, and the resources they have are comprehensive. They have information on treatment centers all over the United States. And I want to remind you that addiction often develops in people who have underlying issues. Think, for instance, of veterans who might be suffering from war trauma and PTSD, and they will need treatment for their addiction that will also help them address their trauma and PTSD. Some of the resources for treatment you would find on SAMHSA are listed on the back of this page, but SAMHSA provides a very comprehensive list of inpatient treatment facilities. It is crucial when we seek treatment for addicts that we honor their individual needs for treatment as well as their family's financial limitations. The good luck that we have here in Arizona is that we have a host of treatment facilities and programs that can be discovered through the Arizona Opioid Assistance and Referral Line that was created by our Attorney General's office. While Arizona treatment facilities, inpatient ones, will be listed on the SAMHSA website, the Arizona Opioid Assistance and Referral Line provides information about local outpatient treatment programs for adults and adolescents, as well as the inpatient facilities you will find on the SAMHSA website. Additionally, there are many good substance abuse counselors here in Arizona. There are many good 12-step programs that will provide support to families and addicts in need. There are a host of compassionate, effective trauma counselors, and much of this is available through your community members' insurance and through online websites that will tell you the location of 12-step meetings. There's even an app that lists them all. You just turn on location and boop, up they come. Helping your community members sort through the list of counselors they receive from their insurance or the list of meetings that they get can be a huge help when they are overwhelmed with their own needs. Thank you for listening so attentively and for attending this training. What you learn here today can be used to save lives, to save families, and to create hope. May God bless you and walk with you as you serve your faith community and the people of Arizona.